Hey guys, so this video is for English Bootcamp Package 2, and this is just a lot more grammar and punctuation. Maybe it feels a little bit unnecessary, but it's actually super useful in all the writing you'll do. So let's get started. Again, you're welcome to either pause the video after each segment and do the worksheet, or just watch the whole thing. So I'll just get the screen share going here. Okay. Yeah, so we're covering punctuation and grammar today. First off is commas. So a comma looks like that little hook, but it's the one that goes on the bottom. So if it's hanging up in the air, it's an apostrophe. If it's down on the bottom of the line, it's a comma. And commas are used for all kinds of things, and we will talk about that today. All right, so if you're following along, this is Rule 18 in your package. So items in a list need commas to separate them. So here's an example. We ate pizza, comma, chicken wings, comma, and cake at his party. Here's another example. Sally, comma, Jackie, comma, Ian, comma, and I went on the field trip. Now, you might have noticed that sometimes there are commas before the word and sometimes there are not. That's called the Oxford comma. In England, you always put a comma there. In the United States, you do not. And in Canada, you get to choose. So that last comma in the list, you guys can decide if you want to use it or not. Also, equal adjectives. So an adjective is a word that describes something, a describing word. And if you have two adjectives together in a row, you need commas to separate them. It's time to get rid of those smelly old sneakers. Smelly, comma, old sneakers. She always asks interesting, intelligent questions. Interesting, comma, intelligent questions. Commas are also used to separate two parts of a sentence. So the parts of a sentence are called the independent clause and the dependent clause. But you don't really need to know that. You can just sort of look and see the two parts. So because it was so hot, comma, we decided to stay indoors. Or if you wish to know the answer, comma, I will tell you. People also give the tip that if you hear a pause in your speech, that's often where a comma will go. So if I'm just saying it, because it was so hot, we decided to stay indoors. You can hear when I read it that there's a little pause, and that can be a hint that maybe that's where a comma goes. Okay, let's go to the next page here. Oh, and at this point you can pause, and if you would like to, you can try the worksheet, add commas. Okay, going on to Rule 19. So commas are also used after introductory words, so words that introduce an idea. These are words like yes, no, and well, always at the beginning of a sentence. So, yes, that is Angela's little sister. No, you can't have dessert until you've eaten your broccoli. Just a minute. All right, so, oh, let's see. All righty. So as I was saying, after introductory words, you need to have a comma after the yes, no, or well. And the same thing happens when you're speaking to someone directly. So if I say, Anthony, you can do your chores later. I go, Anthony, comma, you can do your chores later. Or, did you see that, Stephen? Did you see that, comma, Stephen? Come here, Judy, and bring your pencil. So if the name is in the middle of the sentence, I need a comma before and after to sandwich the name. Now, when you do not need a comma, that's when the person is the subject of the sentence. So I'm not talking to the person, but I'm talking about the person, like Anthony walked to school. I do not need a comma in that scenario. Or the same thing, Stephen saw the dog. That's just a direct, simple sentence. Again, so you just need a comma if you're talking to a person. Okay, so now you can pause the video if you'd like to and try the next worksheet, introductory commas. Okay, on to Rule 20. So there are some specific instances when commas or colons are used. So we'll start with commas between the day and the month of the year. So March 26th, comma, 2019. Or between the name of a city and the state or province or country. So Cayucit, British Columbia. Cairo, Egypt. Also, you can use it after a greeting or closing in a letter. Just a minute here. Okay, and now on to colons. So a colon is when you have two dots, one on top of the other. And colons are used to separate hours and minutes and time. So I think most of us are comfortable with that one. 9:15, you go 9:15, or 10:45, 10:45. We also use colons right before we write a list. So things to buy at the store, colon, dog food, potatoes, mushrooms, lettuce. Alrighty. So try the worksheet, punctuate a friendly letter. And then now we're on to commas, continued, Rule 21. So here, commas are used to set apart an appositive from the rest of the sentence. So that's sort of a fancy word, and it basically means a word or phrase that gives more information about the noun that comes right before it. So it would be, for instance, Mindy, my adult ed teacher, told me how to use commas. So my adult ed teacher, that's that extra bit of information about Mindy, that is the appositive. And the little hint is that you can actually take that out and the sentence will still make sense. So you could say, Mindy taught me how to use commas, or Mindy, my adult ed teacher, taught me how to use commas. So here are some more examples. And again, you need the commas to sandwich the appositive, one on either side. And again, the hint is that you can pull it right out. So Mr. Elmwood, an excellent math teacher, taught John everything he knows. So I could just say Mr. Elmwood taught John everything he knows, but I've decided to add some extra info, and I do that with those two commas. The next one, Susie, comma, my best friend, comma, met me at our secret hideout. Again, I could just say Susie met me at our secret hideout, but I decided to add some extra info, so I need the commas. The last example, the principal, comma, Mr. Avery is a strict man. All right, so next you can try the worksheet, set apart appositives. You can pause the video here, or you can keep listening. Okay, the next section is on direct quotations, or Rule 22 in your notebook. Those two little apostrophe things you see up there are called quotation marks. And one opens what someone says and one ends what someone says. So quotation marks are placed directly before and after a speaker's exact words. So, what a wonderful surprise, exclaimed Elaine. The words Elaine actually said were, what a wonderful surprise. So I'm going to have a quotation mark before that and after. In another example, Ellie's mom asked, who spilled the milk? The exact words that she said were, who spilled the milk? So I'm going to put a quotation mark before and after. The other hint when you're doing direct quotations is to capitalize the first word of each sentence in a quotation. So for example, the team chanted, we won the game, we won the game. So the words they said were, we won the game, we won the game. So we have quotation marks before and after. And then there's two sentences. We won the game once and we won the game a second time. So at each of those, we need a capital letter to start the sentence. Finally, we use a comma to separate the quotation from the rest of the sentence. So this is a good book with my quotation marks. Then I go, comma, said Tracy. Ella agreed, comma, yes, it is a good book. So the commas separate the direct words and the rest of the sentence. So you guys can go ahead and try the worksheet, add quotation marks and correct quotations, or you can keep watching the video. Okay, next we're going to learn about indirect quotations. So that's when we don't tell what a speaker said exactly. We don't give his exact words, but we give a summary of what they said. We still tell what they said, but just not in their exact words. And this is called an indirect quotation. And when you're doing an indirect quotation, you do not need quotation marks because we don't have the exact words. So a hint, if you're trying to figure out, is this a direct or indirect quotation? If you have the word that or if, it's usually indirect. So he explained that it would be easier if I used a calculator. That's an indirect quotation. The direct quotation would be, he explained, it will be easier if you use a calculator. So in the first example, we have the word that. And that word sort of gives us the hint, oh, that's an indirect quotation. I don't need quotation marks. In the next example, she asked if I wanted blueberry or strawberry ice cream. That's indirect. I'm not giving her exact words. But in the next one I am. She asked, do you want blueberry or strawberry ice cream? So in the second example, I do need quotation marks. The worksheet for this one is called to quote or not to quote. So you guys can go ahead and attempt that now, or you can pause the video. Okay, on to titles. So when we're writing the title of something, like the title of a book or a movie or a song or a poem, we're going to capitalize the first letter of the first word and of the last word and every word in between, except for those short little words like the, a, or and. So for example, Jack and the Beanstalk. I've capitalized Jack and Beanstalk, but not and the. Another example, Amazing Grace. Capitalize both of those. Now, when you're writing by hand, you're going to underline the titles of books, movies, and magazines. Okay, and if you're typing, you can use italics. So you go Command I and it makes the letters go slanty. So here you can see Jurassic Park, that's the name of a movie. If you're writing it by hand, you underline it. If you're typing it on a computer, you italicize it. And the same thing with National Geographic, a magazine. Now, sometimes within books or magazines, there are articles or poems or shorter works that have their own titles. And because those are shorter works within other works, we're actually going to use quotation marks instead of the underlining or the italics. So we're going to use quotation marks around the titles of songs, stories, articles, or poems. For instance, "O Canada" is a beautiful national anthem, and I've used quotation marks around the name of the song, "O Canada." Or, have you read the poem, "The Highwayman"? Again, I've put quotation marks around the name of the poem. Here's an example. My favorite song off Adele's album 21 is "Rolling in the Deep." So the song title is in quotations, "Rolling in the Deep," and the album title, 21, is italicized. So again, the bigger work will be underlined or italicized, and the smaller works inside of that, like songs, stories, articles, or poems, use quotation marks to show that it's a title. All right, so you can attempt the worksheets, punctuate titles, and capital letters in titles. And I believe that brings us to the end. That was a lot this week, but the next package is about writing. So we've done all of our grammar for now, which might be a relief to you guys. All right. See you next time.